Thumbs up. Excellent. Well, good evening, everybody. Welcome to the council meeting for January 30th, 2024. As we have quorum, I will call the meeting to order. The time is 7 p.m. As always, I'd like to start the meeting off in a good way by acknowledging that the City of Maple Ridge carries out its business on the traditional and unceded territories of the Katzie First Nation and the Kwantlen First Nation. I will hand it off to you, Madam Clerk.
Thank you and good evening. This meeting is being live streamed and recorded and will be available to the public for playback on our website in accordance with Council Policy 3.12. The purpose of a council meeting is to enact powers given to council using bylaws or resolutions and is the venue for debate of issues before voting on a bylaw or resolution. This meeting is being conducted through the city's One Meeting platform. For voting purposes, council has been provided with voting cards, green for in favor, red for opposed, and yellow for point of order. An opportunity for public input will be provided near the end of the agenda, but participants are reminded that there should be no discussion of public hearing bylaws which have not yet reached conclusion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. So next on the agenda, I'd like to add an amendment for the agenda, and that is a mini delegation of the Ridge Meadows Minor Hockey U13 A1 Rustlers. Can I get a motion to moved by Councillor Carrera, seconded by Councillor Schiller? Any comments? No, seeing none. All those in favor? Excellent. Thank you very much. Now we're going to go to approval of the agenda. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda? Moved by Councillor Duick, seconded by Councillor Doze. Any comments, questions? Seeing none, call the question. All those in favor? Motion is carried unanimously. Finally, we go to the adoption of the minutes from January 16th, 2024. Can I get a motion for this item, please? Moved by Councillor Doze, seconded by Councillor Carreras. Any additions or admissions from the minutes? Seeing none, call the question. All those in favor? Motion is carried unanimously. Then we're going to move on to delegations. Is that correct?
That is correct.
All right. So you're all wondering, why do we have hockey players in the chamber? This is quite a spectacular moment, and we're going to call upon Jeff and Alicia to come on up and share a few words as to why you are all here and what is so special. I don't want to take your thunder away as much as I want to. Come on up. And then we've got captain, co-captain, assistant. All right, you have the floor.
Wonderful, thank you. Good evening, council and members of the Maple Ridge community. My name is Alicia Ando. I am a proud parent of one of our U13 A1 Rustlers, as well as a sponsorship coordinator for our team. Many of you may not know, but the Ridge Meadows U13 A1 Rustlers have been accepted to compete in the prestigious, most sought after youth tournament in the world, the Quebec International Pee Wee Hockey Tournament. Yeah, it's really amazing. So this tournament will see over 120 teams play from countries from around the world. Over 2,000 athletes will participate in this tournament over 10 days in the beautiful Quebec City. And a week from tomorrow, actually, there's going to be about 60 of us boarding a plane to go on this amazing adventure. As you can imagine, everyone's very, very excited. This is an amazing opportunity, and this is the very first time in Ridge Meadows history and Ridge Meadows minor hockey history that a team from our association will be attended. So I would love to just give a really big shout out to our boys, our athletes, and our goalie Ashley, who really should get a lot of recognition for this amazing athletic achievement. So just going to give them a quick.
Yes.
As you can imagine, oh, thank you.
Come. It's quite the achievement.
As you can imagine, the last few months have been spent planning and fundraising and reaching out to all of our members of the community for help and support. And so another really big thank you to all of the businesses and donors and sponsors in our community who have stepped forward and stood behind us to make this tournament accessible and inclusive for all of our players and their families. So we could not do that without them, whether it's funds that have been donated to the team to help cover some of the costs or sponsorships or donations in kind. Every single contribution has helped our team tremendously. Before I, move on and give the floor to Jeff, our assistant coach here, I'd also like to introduce our captain, Dawson Malowski, and our assistant captain, Connor Baines, and they'd just like to share a little bit about what this tournament means to them.
Right.
Hi, my name is Connor Baines. I'm from Maple Ridge. I play center. This tournament's really special to us because it's a once in a lifetime opportunity that we're all going to cherish, and it's going to be tons of fun.
Yeah.
Hey, my name is Dawson Malowski from Maple Ridge, and I play right defense. This tournament means a lot because I'm going to be with all my friends, and it's once in a lifetime opportunity to be with all my buddies.
Right on. Thank you.
So it really takes a village, and we are incredibly proud to be part of the Maple Ridge community. This village has stood behind us and supported us and rallied us on, and I hope that they continue to do so through the tournament and continue to follow us online. You can find us on the Ridge Meadows Wrestlers PWA1 Instagram site. We've also are on the website. And before we move off the floor here, I'd just like to give the mic to Jeff here to say a couple of words.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Just how elusive this tournament's been for Maple Ridge. There's been 8 NHLers that have come out of this community, and none of them got a chance to play in this tournament.
Wow.
So this is a huge achievement for Ashley and the boys here. Our first game that we're playing is on Thursday. We're playing the New York Rangers, Junior Rangers, followed by the Boston Junior Terriers, the next game. And our first actual tournament game will be on Saturday at 8:30 Eastern Standard Time. So everybody, if they want to tune into the Quebec Pee Wee International Tournament, it'll be live stream. It's at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Next Saturday, yeah, I believe it's the 10th. The 10th, yeah. So we're playing the Oakland Junior Grizzlies. They're a team out of Michigan, Detroit, believe it or not. So that'll be our first game, and I'm really looking forward to seeing Ashley and the boys compete. I think they're going to do fantastic, and hopefully we have a really good result. So thank you so much for having us tonight. We appreciate it and all the support in the community.
Excellent. Can I actually request if you can email us when the games are playing, how people can tune in, the whole agenda, so we can post it on our social media, and let's get Maple Ridge involved as much as we possibly can.
Yes, I can definitely do that. Just as an addition to that, I'm not sure if all of you are familiar with the Videotron in Quebec City. Does anybody know? This is a stadium that holds about 20,000 attendees every single night to come and watch these games. So they anticipate during the 10 days of this tournament that there will be about 200,000 people watching this thing live, as well as internationally around the world. So we're happy and we're proud to be able to showcase Maple Ridge and Pitt Meadows to the rest of the world, because I don't know if they would know where we are other than this opportunity. So we're really excited for that.
Excellent. Do you need a French translator? I can volunteer for that. Listen, on behalf of council, and I'll open it up if anybody wants to ask any questions. I'm so glad that you guys are all here today. It's so special, and we've said it over and over again. Maple Ridge produces athletes, and we have a bunch of them right here. And we wish you all the success. More than anything else, have fun, make friends. All those connections are so critically important for you. We know how it is. Some of us may have been there, not me. But I just want to, I can't tell you how proud of we are that you guys are going to Quebec for this. It's historic for us. Thank you. I'll open up comments from council. Nope, I think we said it all. Oh, Councilor Doze.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. I just want to say that I consider myself very privileged to see a day like this when we have kids of your age flying the flag of Maple Ridge. Most importantly, I want to remind you that just like the mayor has said, the whole city is behind you, but you owe us a duty. I understand you're going to play the team from Michigan. Mr. Captain, play your heart out. Yes, I want you to do that, remembering that when you finish, we want to mount that cup that you're going to win. We want to mount it here. When you hit it hard, and know that we will be here cheering. We'll be here cheering because I want to say this. This is not funny. Something is happening in Maple Ridge. For the first time, you guys are going to represent us, and you are representing us at a time when we are 150 years old.
Yes.
You are representing us at a time when we are hosting the BC Summer Games. And most importantly, you are representing us at a time when we want to put Maple Ridge in the map of the world. You have the trump. You have to take us to the world. That is what you're doing, and I want you to know that we are watching. I will be clapping and I will be praying for you. And by the grace of God, you are going to achieve the objective of this game. Congratulations for representing us, and God will help you. Thank you.
Thank you. Well said. Well said. Okay. Seeing as how there's no other comments, want to thank you again. You're welcome to stay. But I've got some pins for you.
Yeah, it's really exciting.
Yeah.
Are you familiar with the pin exchange of the tournament? Oh, it's very exciting. Amazing.
When are you, before you leave, come back to us, we'll get you a flag. Right? Hey.
So I'll explain the pins really quickly. So these mean a lot. All of our athletes are going to be traveling with pins that have been designed for our team. And one of the most longstanding traditions of the Quebec International Pee Wee Tournament is that the athletes exchange pins with all of the other players from all of the other teams. And there's also pin exchanges that they can do with teams from around the world. And so we've put in bids to play teams like Team Japan, Team Poland. And so we can take these pins along with us and proudly trade them with other countries so that they will remember Maple Ridge in the honor of this team. So thank you very much for this. We appreciate it.
So when you come for your flag, I think you need more pins, so I'll get you more.
Okay. Thank you very much. And thank you for this opportunity. We really appreciate it. And we will try our best to make sure that we make Maple Ridge proud. Thank you.
You've already made us proud. Thank you. And now the room empties.
Thank you.
Say hi, Jill.
Okay, moving along, Madam Clerk, what's next on our agenda?
Thank you, Your Worship. The next item on the agenda are items listed on the consent agenda to be considered for approval in one motion unless a member of council wishes to discuss an item and requests that it be excluded. Each item removed from the consent agenda will be debated and voted on separately by council. The items will appear on the following screens.
Okay, is there anyone who wishes to remove anything from the consent agenda? Councillor Dewitt.
I'd like to remove 7.3, the council expenses, please.
Okay, thank you. Any other? Seeing none, so we will, I'll need a motion to first deal with the other items on the consent agenda. Can I get a motion for those? Moved by Councillor Carrera, seconded by Councillor Dewitt. Comments, questions on the other items on the consent agenda? Seeing none, I will call the vote. All those in favor? Motion is carried unanimously. Thank you very much. And now we will deal with the council expenses. Can I get a motion to move this item, please? Moved by Councillor Carrera, seconded by Councillor Duick. Okay, open up for questions. Councillor Duick, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's not a question as much as I think at the beginning of this term, we did talk about updating the policy regarding council remuneration, and it's one of those things we didn't get to. And I thought it would be beneficial because I know this isn't the entire expenses for the year. So I guess first off, are staff prepared to just talk about that piece?
Yes, they are.
And then I want to just kind of give the history and the rationale for why we really do need to update this policy so that we're
Okay.
not in this situation.
Okay, so then we'll go to staff who will do a presentation on that, and then we can continue on with questions.
Thank you.
So thank you for that. You are correct. This policy was adopted in 2014, so it is in need of review. The report on this evening's agenda, just to add some context, it includes all of the expenses that must be included in the annual statement of financial information. So that includes both expenses that are covered under policy 3.07, as well as other costs that are outside the scope of that. So costs that are outside the scope of that policy include charges for cell phones and other devices, as well as work that is done to advocate on behalf of the city of Maple Ridge. We do that so that when we publish the statement of financial information, which typically comes before you in June, the costs in that report for a year align with the costs that have gone forward to council in their expense report. So the report in front of you tonight includes the costs that had been recorded in the general ledger at the time the report was written. We're still in the middle of our fiscal year end. Costs are still coming in. It is highly likely that those numbers will change. As we have done in previous years, once those numbers are finalized, we do bring you forward an updated report. And this year when we do that, we'll bring forward some recommendations regarding policy review, and we'll also look for direction on how to address any of the variations to policy that we would see in the report. So.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay.
Councillor Youssef.
Oh,
Sorry.
I was
Sorry,
just-
sorry. I wanted to know if, because he put his hand up early, I wanted to
Okay.
know if there was something specific he was referring to. That's just for the speakers list, Councillor Youssef? Okay, thank you. All right, go back to Councillor Duick.
All right, thank you. So as somebody that's been around this table, 2009, 2014, I think it's important because there is some discussion out there about our expenses and how it is that people are spending the money. So in 2009, the concept behind the policy, and there's policy and then there's practice. And this is where we get into this discussion. The practice has been, it was meant for a term. And remember in 2009 and 2014, it was a 3-year term. So you were allotted a sum of money to spend in your term. And it was up to you as elected officials to make sure you stayed within that budget. Although the policy says annual, the practice has been something different. And so in 2014, when it was reviewed again, there was also a discussion that everyone would be able to go to LMLGA and UBCM, which are both conferences BC wide, and then LMLGA being Lower Mainland Local Government Association. And it was thought that everyone should be entitled to go to that if they wanted. You weren't forced to, but you could, and there was funds to do that. FCM, it was envisioned that you could go once in a term. And then you decided yourself. Now, having said that, the costs of everything have gone up a lot, which is why I'm asking, and others have asked before about revisiting it, because the cost to go to FCM, the cost to go to UBCM, LMLJ, hotel costs, the conference costs, everything has really gone up a lot. So I think it was important for everyone to understand why what we did in 2009 and 2014, but things are different now and other communities do it different. So for example, we're required to make note of all the expenses attached to us. But as Ms. Nolan said, our cell phones or our computers and that are really what we need to do the position. So it really shouldn't be part of our council expenses for training and or conferences. So that's why I raised it, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for that opportunity.
Thank you. Councillor Youssef.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Councillor Dewick, for that. I concur with your comments about the cost of doing business versus, as was mentioned, the cost of doing advocacy work on behalf of the city. And I mean, just looking at my own expenses here, I'm seeing a lot of things to do with the community and community events, the Ridge Meadow South Asian Gala, the Chamber of Commerce end of summer barbecue, the Celebrating Women in Business, the Ridge Meadows Hospital Gala, the Hometown Heroes Banquet. These are all costs of advocating on behalf of the city and, of course, being involved in the community as well. With the conferences, I wasn't aware that it was the practice was different from the policy, but I'm glad Councillor Dewick has raised that, because it lends to a better understanding of where the monies are being spent. And of course, I really appreciate the fact that that was going to be my question actually to Ms. Nolan. But Councillor Dewick has already alluded to it and answered it, is that the costs over the years have been rising, not just for the community events that are being attended, but also for attending these conferences, as well as the lodging that would be required for us to attend. So thank you for that. And I look forward to revisiting this policy and seeing how we can more efficiently spend taxpayers' dollars to do the work that is required of us. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
You, any further? Councillor Carreras.
Just a quick question. I've asked this before because I've talked about the need review policy. When was the last time that dollar amount was changed?
The thresholds were established in 2014. They have not been indexed or adjusted since that time. So they are in.
They're over it. They're like a
they're overdue
decade.
for review.
Yeah. And were they in the 2009 policy? I mean, I read the 2014 report and the strikeout wasn't in the dollar amount. So.
That's a good question. I don't know the answer.
Okay, but
to
at
that.
least we know from 2014, there's been no change in the last
Correct.
decade. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no others, I will ask some questions myself.
Yep.
So with the budgets that are set forward for council and mayor, what is the intent of that $5,000 budget? What is it used for?
So the policy talks about, actually, let me just, I brought it with me so I could remember the name here. It's training, conferences, and association building. So what it was envisioned at the time was conferences, as well as those community networking events. So that was what that was envisioned to cover at the time it was adopted. There is also a provision for training. It's generally speaking, I think it's very easy to get into a debate between what's a conference and what's training. So it's been really those conferences and those networking events.
Okay, and then so when I look at my expenses, for instance, the advocacy trips for BRT, for Abernathy, even for the battery plant eMoly, is like, because I'm a little confused myself, because that's business I do on behalf of the city. I need to go and advocate in order to get funding from the provincial government and the federal government. Is that envisioned as part of that budget, or is that separate?
No, it's separate. So that's why it's reported in a column titled Other. It is not within the scope of this policy. It is budgeted for separately.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Okay.
Yes, because all of us have to have the ability to go and advocate on behalf of our community. Indeed, part of how we got to $1 billion investment in a battery plant is the advocacy that we have all done. Same goes for the BRT. We lobbied hard for that. We created the Maple Ridge Moose campaign. So these are all things that are benefiting the city. And I think it's important to understand that that's not part of those expenses, but thank you for enlightening us on that. Okay.
you.
Okay, so yeah, we're just going to receive the report. Okay. Did I do a motion for that? I did. Okay, yeah. So we just need to vote to receive the report. All those in favor? Motion is carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Okay, now moving on to the next item, Madam Clerk.
Thank you. The first item under bylaws is item number 9.1, the Maple Ridge Code of Conduct Repeal Bylaw number 7986-2024. And this is to rescind the current City of Maple Ridge Council Conduct Bylaw number 7637-2020, which is here for first three readings. I can just speak briefly to that. Council did have the Code of Conduct Bylaw come in front of them that has received three readings. It was then determined that that bylaw did not contain a repeal provision for the current Code of Conduct Bylaw. So this is just to bring this in line with that bylaw. And once this has received three readings, the the new Code of Conduct Bylaw sitting at third will come forward with this additional bylaw for final adoption. And that will ensure that we only have one Code of Conduct Bylaw.
Thank you. I want to make sure that we all understand what it is that we're voting on and talking about. So before we move to that point, can I get a motion to move this item? Moved by Councillor Carrera, seconded by Councillor Duick. Comments, questions? Seeing none? Oh, sorry, Councillor Carrera.
You may be doing this in your comments. I'm just clarifying that we are just rescinding the old one so that we can go forward with the new one. We are not rescinding a code of conduct bylaw. We still believe that there is a necessity for it, and that bylaw has been discussed multiple opportunities and coming forward. This is essentially just housekeeping to be able to implement the next bylaw, which we've talked about a lot.
That is correct.
Correct. Thank you.
This is very much a procedural vote because yes, we have talked a lot about, we have voted on the other one, but we can't bring in two at the same time. So this is part of that process. Unfortunately, it wasn't in there in the first place. And I hope the new one will have one in there. But that's exactly what it is. Okay. Any further comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor, motion is carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Moving on to the next item, Madam Clerk.
Thank you. Item 9.2 is application 2023-111-RZ, zoning bylaw housekeeping amendments bylaw number 7928-2023, which provides for minor clarifications and corrections to the zone amending bylaw number 7600-2019 before you this evening for third reading and adoption.
Thank you. Can I get a motion for this item, please? Moved by Councillor Schiller, seconded by Councillor Carreras. Comments, questions? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Motion is carried unanimously. Thank you. Moving on to the next item, please.
Thank you. Item 9.3, application 2017-548-RZ for property located at 12313 McNutt Road, zone amending bylaw number 7433-2018 to permit the subdivision of the subject property into two lots. And this is before you this evening for adoption.
Thank you. Can I get a motion to move this item, please? Moved by Councillor Schiller, seconded by Councillor Carreras. Comments, questions? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor, motion is carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Moving on to the next item, Madam Clerk.
Thank you. We move into committee reports and recommendations. The items contained in this category are staff reports presented at an earlier committee of the whole meeting to provide council with an opportunity to ask staff detailed questions. The items are now before the regular council meeting for debate and vote. The first item is item 10.1, application 2023-350-RZ for property located at 24070 128 Avenue and 24195 Fern Crescent to rezone from RS3 to CD 5-23 to facilitate the development of 47 townhouse dwelling units.
Thank you very much. Can I get a motion to move this item, please? Moved by Councillor Duick, seconded by Councillor Schiller. I'll open it up for questions, please. Councillor Schiller.
Thank you, Mayor Remy. I'll just start off by saying that I'm glad to see this coming back. We looked at this in mid-December. It was referred back to staff, and I'm glad to see it's moving along. And I want to acknowledge the work that staff and the proponent have done to address the concerns. my concerns are quite specifically around the number of units per hectare. And the reason why this is a concern for me, it's sort of two concerns. So the first one is around a diversity of density in the community. So to me, there are areas in the community where density makes sense. Let's talk about the downtown core. Let's talk about Lougheed transit corridor. I can see we densify there and we get a lot of efficiencies, right? We can use that to drive better transit service. It makes sense to put bike lanes and pedestrian pathways. You have the numbers to achieve some wins there. And, you know, for me, this question is always very site specific. You know, this area is never going to achieve those levels of density. We've already got some challenges around there because we don't have the second crossing at 240th. And you know, that's we're in that situation and we need to deal with that. But when I look at then, okay, would we allow sort of more density that the OCP calls for? That's where I start to run into a bit of trouble. So one question I would like to ask of staff, just so that I can make sure that I'm clear, is that, again, the relationship between the number of units per hectare and the FSR. And I'm working to understand this. So this development, it achieves a certain FSR. And at the end of the day, there is a number of units that is more than what is called for in the OCP in the Silver Valley Area Plan. So can staff just clarify a little bit, again, for me, the relationship between those two things?
Certainly. So the RM1 zone has a typical base of 0.6 FSR, which can be increased with a density bonus contribution, as is that this application is proposing in its CD bylaw form that we're proposing to 0.75 FSR. So that FSR is the floor area ratio, which is 0.75 is, you had a 10,000 square foot lot, the floor area of all the buildings would be 7,500 square feet. And 0.75 FSR is quite typical in some parts of the city. Now, units per hectare is just the number of units on the lot in that hectareage or acreage. And so in this case, the Silver Valley Plan has a 40 unit in this area, 40 unit per hectare maximum, which is a bit lower than what you would find in some other parts of the city. And it's just that in this case, in this area, this more moderate density is specified at 0.40 units per hectare. Other parts of the city, we don't actually have units per hectare specified in the plan. We just have zones which have FSRs. So I think this application here highlights, and some others in Silver Valley highlight, the juxtaposition of the floor area ratio, which is the floor area related to the lot, and the units per hectare on the lot.
So just to make sure I'm understanding, in other areas, there's an FSR that's acceptable, but there is not specifically a number of units per hectare.
That is correct, such as in Albion, which I'd be noting at the committee of the whole last week. There are a number of projects that are 0.75 FSR, and they would be over 50 units per hectare. Those are different. That's a different area. We don't use units per hectare in those areas, and the density is maybe a little higher in those areas than is typically found in Silver Valley.
Okay, that is helpful. And like I say, for me, it just is very site specific. And it's like, is this the location for a higher density development? I'm just going to leave it there for now and hear what others think. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Carreras.
Thank you. This one's been a tough one for me, and I've gone back and forth on this multiple times over the last, I guess, week since we saw it come back with instructions from December. And I think that back in December, the input that I gave was around the number of units was the challenge for me, and the number of people being in this area was where I was really struggling with. And of course, I also recognize there is a need for housing. So this is where I'm wrestling with right now, the need for housing and this density in this area that really is tough to densify. So I do have a couple of questions. And again, I know there was some talk about this during the committee of the whole, but I do have some questions about the area plan, because I do believe that if you're asking me to change the OCP, that we do need to look at it strategically for the region, and to look at just the one site is kind of like how we get into this patchwork of stuff and we're not looking at things strategically. So when I look at the area plan for Albion, these area plans have input from citizens, right? There's quite a robust consultation that goes on with the community. And so I think it's important to take into context the citizens and the thought that they put into that area plan, which is why I do want to go back and reflect on that area plan. I also recognize that the area plan, although I've asked about it multiple times, it is an old area plan, and I think just goes to the need. And this is what we're struggling with now, is it does go to that need that we can't do an area plan, put it on a shelf and forget about it for 20 years. It does need to come off, and we do need to have like a set plan, like every so many years, 7 years, whatever it is, we have to reassess these area plans to make sure they're still in line with the needs of the community today, and have that check-in from the citizens saying, yeah, you know what, that's cool. We're good with this change. And I think that's what's important for me as we go forward, is what do the citizens really want in this community? So and I talked about some of these things. I struggle with the exit in and out, the only one way, although it's classified as an arterial route. It isn't actually an arterial route because it's not wide enough to actually qualify for an arterial route. I also read the area plan. It looks like they're anticipating that the Horse Hamlet is about 240 is where it'll max out for units. And so when we came to that 240, and when we looked at the area plan all those years ago, did it envision a second bridge and a second crossing at 240th? I don't know if anybody knows that.
I am not familiar with that. I might turn the question over to the engineering staff, who they may know that historical fact from 20 years ago plus.
Sorry, could you repeat the question again?
So when we did the original, like the 3 sort of hamlets and that vision all those years ago, and we sort of talked about maxing out at 240 in the Horse Hamlet. I mean, the Horse Hamlet talks about being your larger, more estate homes, and it talks about 240. But when we envisioned and we talked about those numbers, did we actually anticipate that there would be a second, like that 240th bridge would be in at that time? When we were talking about what density this area could hold.
I'm gonna have to probably look into that. I was in the planning department at the time, but that's stretching my memory quite a ways back. I don't recall if it was in our plan at the time.
Okay. I think I'm going to go from there. I mean, obviously, my other concerns when we look at the region is the transit, the lack of transit. Again, I'm trying to reconcile all these pieces. This isn't serviced by transit. There's very, very few, well, there are schools that are completely over capacity, and we're still not getting a signal from the provincial government that they're going to invest in schools in our area. And I'm not sure we're getting a signal from the provincial government that they're going to assist in some of the infrastructure needed, like a secondary bridge. But I do have some more questions, but I think I'll leave that at there in case anybody else has other questions before I go into my next sort of line of questions as I wrestle with this. It is probably one of the most challenging, like I will admit, this is probably one of the most difficult decisions I've had to make since I've held this office, is this particular lot. And I'll go into the next bit in the next bit, but thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Duick.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So when I look at the staff report and when we referred this application back based on the density, and there was some other comments. So staff have said that the applicant has achieved everything, albeit just reduced it by 1 unit versus 48 to 47. But if I go back to the original, the single family, because the OCP zoning for that particular area was medium high density. And the proposed was medium high density. Is that correct? Is that?
Yes, that's correct.
Yes. So, but now, so moving from the 27 single family lots that was proposed to the zoning now, that's where the change of the RM1 comes in.
Well, the change now is to propose the units per hectare of 57 units per hectare rather than the 40 units per hectare maximum for that designation. That's the OCP change. And then the zoning change is a CD zone, a comprehensive development custom zone that's based on the RM1 zone. I should note in Silver Valley, there are a few other lots that do have RM1 zoning that have over the years looked at. There's about 4 or 5 sites that I think 3 that have been adopted and 2 that are in process that have RM1 zoning in Silver Valley under the medium high density designation.
Right, that was going to be the next, because that was asked at committee of the whole, I believe, and then clarified that there are other areas that. So yes, I understand the concerns about changing the OCP, but if I think about the rationale behind it, and in particular, the affordability, what families are asking for, families wanting to live in the Silver Valley area, in townhouses is unfortunately what they're looking at now. So that's why I'm looking at supporting this particular application. And then considering council's comments around the garages and electric charging, and so the applicant addressed all of those. The financial contribution. So I guess why it's a little bit tricky is that the single families were at first reading, and then the proposal to change, but the proposal to change, my understanding, is because of the market and what they're hearing out there on the market. As far as the traffic, I absolutely agree. I mean, Silver Valley needs a second access. I don't think anybody around this room doesn't agree with that. So that's something that council needs to be responsible for. If we were to look back at the 27 single family homes, if that was to go ahead, potentially it could be the same, because they could have secondary suites, you could have the same traffic. And so I'm looking at it from the affordability piece. So you could have probably more cars if they were single family homes than you would in townhouse unit. So that's one of my rationales behind it, is that you potentially could have more in the single family. And then I'm looking at the financial contributions for the density bonusing. I'm looking at everything else that they've achieved. So I really would like to support this and continue to support this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any further comments or questions? Seeing none, round 2, Councilor Schiller and Councilor Carreras.
Thank you. And yes, and you know, I do have questions, because I really have tried to dig into this. And as Councilor Carreras said, like it's you can sort of see two different sides of it. I can genuinely anyway. I want to acknowledge as well that there is sort of a changing landscape here that we're all working within in terms of, you know, provincial changes and where does that put us? And so I just want to really try to understand this very clearly. So the 27 single family lots that was initially proposed for this property, this was brought forward earlier. My understanding was that it went to first reading and then that plan was put aside. So can you just clarify for me exactly how many lots exist right now? Like, what is the number of lots that exist today?
Right now, there's just 2 lots.
Thank you. Okay. And another clarification is, you know, so this property is zoned for medium to high residential. Is the definition of that consistent throughout the community? Like, is medium density in Silver Valley the same as medium density in Albion?
No, there's different, it's used differently in different communities. Medium high density has its Silver Valley meaning, which is the definition that we have up to 40 units per hectare. It is different in Albion to a certain extent, and different in different parts of the city, depending on the plans that were done at the time. But they're customized to the nature of the neighborhood.
Okay, thank you. And that, I mean, that just speaks to my sort of, you know, because I can kind of see like 2 different views of it. It's kind of like, well, what do you use to make a decision then? And it's like, I look at the plan. What does the plan say? This, especially this particular hamlet, it was envisioned, to my way of thinking, for, you know, larger properties. I understand the market has changed. What hasn't changed, or maybe what has changed, is that the Golden Ears Provincial Park is the busiest provincial park in BC. And, you know, there are times where you can't drive down that road because of the traffic. And again, like that's for council to own that. That's not for this, you know, proponent to deal with, but it is also a reality. And that's where I just sort of struggle on whether this is the right thing for the area. or not. We support, I support development, I support density, but it is specific. And I think, to me, we're in this conversation because a project's been brought forward that asked for a variance. So then we start asking questions, and that's how we get in this conversation. And I just think it's fair for us to have the conversation and ask the questions and really delve into what's right for the community. I'm going to leave it there. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Carreras.
Thank you. I just want to, because there's been a lot of talk around the new legislation and what could be on this lot. It was mentioned at Committee of the Whole. So there are currently 2 lots. So with the new legislation, again, like the subdivision of 27 was pre-legislation, and now we're like after legislation, and the legislation really does change the landscape for us at this table and how we actually design cities going forward, especially these outer lying on the edge of the urban containment boundary. What per the legislation could go on those lots right now?
Well, as there's just 2 lots right now, then they're quite large lots. It'd be just up to 4 units then.
And the one large lot is excluded actually because it's so large, right?
Yes, it is.
So the large lot can get,
I think it's like 2 units. Yeah.
2, and then the smaller lot can go 4 because it's
Yeah.
within the range.
Yes.
Okay. And then, so currently that's all that's on there. So currently you can get 6 in total. Now the 27 hasn't been decided on.
No.
So when we did here at Committee of the Whole, they could put 100 units on there. It's not quite the case as we go forward that we would have to make a decision on what that minimum lot size would be in the request to subdivide it.
Yes. I mean, right now you just have 2 lots with rural residential zoning. So to create the 27 lots, the previous application would have to proceed through to adoption.
Okay. I think that one's just a bigger question for me, because I think as we go forward, we're going to have to reassess what a minimum lot is in those outlying areas when there is the ability to do densification like this. So going forward, I would look at 27 separate lots, different, knowing that you can do that. The other question I have is there's a town, the companies also has a townhome just down the street. It's Everwood.
Yes, the applicant company there's an application down Fern Crescent to the west.
Do we know what the density is on that one?
That project has 35 units and is approximately, the whole area, including the park here, is approximately 2 hectares, and about half of it, about 3/4 of a hectare's park. So it's about 1.25 hectares. So the density in that would be around 30 units per hectare approximately.
Okay, so that one is like kind of in line, or if not less than what was envisioned. Okay, I understand the need for housing and the changing landscape, and it's just grappling with being that far out and not serviced by transit, which was envisioned for that new legislation anyhow. So I just want to clarify some of the information that we heard, that what is the actual truth and what we can put on that lot. So thanks.
I should just note too on that, the townhouse, Councillor Carreras, that has 2 designations. The northern part is medium high density, and the south part is eco cluster. So it's a split designation site.
Okay.
So it's a mixture of the higher and the more moderate density.
Okay. All right. And I don't need to go to another round. I think I'll just put it out there that, I'm likely, because I do believe in what the citizens have to say, and because I'm struggling with it, I'm really curious as to what the community has to say. So I'm likely, pretty reluctantly, but I'm likely to support this to go to public hearing, because I'm curious as to what the residents in the area feel about the density, and I'll reserve my final kind of judgment on this application until after I hear from the community. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Dode.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. I consider again myself privileged to be opportune to participate in this discussion. I want to say that this is one of the simplest and easiest decisions I can make. It's to me as clean as a bright shining sun shining day. I say this to emphasize the fact that before I came into these chambers, I have been outside in the street and I know what it means to be outside. Perhaps some of us do not actually understand what it means for you to stay out there and the cloud will go dark and you have nowhere to go. Accommodation, housing is fundamental to all human beings. Anybody who will tell himself the truth, and I have lived it. I'm saying this because I've had sentiments about children's schools, traffic, and all whatnot. The truth is that if you need accommodation, you're not going to be thinking about the children's school first of all. You need to get shelter first. And I will again use myself as an example. When I moved to Maple Ridge was the only place I could afford for my family throughout the whole of Lower Mainland, unless I went down to Chilliwack. We even went to Mission to look for accommodation when I was working in Vancouver. My wife works in Vancouver. It was impossible for us to get there, but still, we needed accommodation. So we came to Maple Ridge. What am I saying? If you need accommodation and there is no route to Silver Valley, but that is where you can afford, and your children will have to go to school in Pitt Meadows or Port Coquitlam, you will go there. You need it. So for me, I'm being pragmatic about this. We have to decide, are we going to help the people that need accommodation out there in the street? Are we going to provide and cater for our citizens who are staying outside and have nowhere to go? For me, the answer is clear yes. And therefore, for this reason, I want to say that I listened very carefully when we discussed these things. Yes, there is no big road there leading to that place, or a trail road, as you would like to call it. But I do know the concern that one of my colleagues here did mention, in case of emergency, how do you get out of there? That's a very valid statement, and nobody will dispute that. I also heard the CAO mention to us that he's going to make that road has become a priority for us. And here this evening, we were talking about expenses, and I heard his worship say here before us that part of the cost he incurred was lobbying and making sure that we attracted the required funding for some of these things we are talking about. If that be the case, I want to say that I'm going to support this with the hope that maybe by tomorrow we should be able to lobby and get the government to see the need we have. The present provincial government has been pro-housing, and I don't think it's going to be out of place for us to go back to them and say, our people need access road to this place. This is where we have available housing for them. Please help us. And I'm sure that persuasion will help us to achieve this. For this and only this, the fact that we need accommodation for those who need it badly, for those who need it and are living out there in the street. I'm going to support this development, and I'm going to vote a big yes to it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dewick.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You know, I really appreciate the passion around the room, and it is a challenging one because we're dealing with what was proposed, what's in the OCP, what the proposed new zoning. But if I go back to the 27 and I look at the OCP, the 27 was, it's because of the single detached rural residential zoning that we had to approve the OCP designation, correct? Because this is where everybody's going back and forth on what's OCP, what's compliant versus what exists.
Well, currently, right now, it's zoned RS3 rural residential that allows just for larger, very large rural lots.
Right.
And the designation, the medium high density designation would allow for the 27 single family lots and then up to some lower density, medium density townhouses.
And the reason I raise that is because people are saying, well, right now it's only 2 lots, which is true. It is right now zoned rural residential. However, the OCP envisioned 27 houses on those lots.
Yes, it envisioned 15 units per hectare to 40 units per hectare, which would equate to something like 27, it could be 27 single family lots or a little less single, it had a range, so 15 to 40 units per hectare. So a number of smaller lots, such as 27 or moderate density townhouses.
Right. Okay. And now with the applicants asked to go with townhouses, that changes the zone from the current OCP or from what was envisioned in the OCP. So this is where we're dealing with a before first reading, a after first reading, and Bill 44. And I think that's why everyone around the table is struggling with it. So I can appreciate that. But if I think back to when Silver Valley, it was envisioned that this would not be two rural residential lots. It would have single family homes. So that's what I'm basing my decision on. So if the 27 single family homes were there and they had suites, you would have the same volume of cars. The difference is they wouldn't be affordable. Speaking to Councillor Dosey's point. And even one would argue townhouses aren't going to be affordable for many people too, but they'll be more affordable than single family homes. So I'm going to continue to support it. And thank you for the clarification. I know it's a bit, it's been back and forth, and it doesn't help that we have Bill 44 in there too. So thank you.
Councillor Carreras.
I know I said I was done last time. I promised to be done this time. I just want to clarify when we talk about Bill 44 and how it changes the landscape, knowing that Bill 44 exists, that if I go back into that area plan, I wouldn't do 27 single family lots. Like that's the challenge for me, is if the density back in the day was envisioned 25 homes, but with the new legislation, 27 homes can rapidly expand to, if you take into account, like it's actually only 52 if you maxed it out. It's not the 100 that we heard at Committee of the Whole. But that's where we as a council, when we start looking into these area plans and Bill 44 comes into, that's where I struggle with, is now it changes. When we look at medium density, what does that mean? A 3,300 square foot lot is something that we would approve easily before Bill 44. But after Bill 44 in a rural area, I think about things very, very differently. So anyhow, I like I said, I will send this to public hearing and curious to hear what the community says. And after I hear from the community, I'll make my final decision on this, but I'll send it through tonight. Thanks.
Thank you.
Just say one more word.
Go ahead. Councillor Dothe.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. Yeah, I think I'll shut up after this, but I just wanted to say this, that I think we want to, I would urge my colleagues here to please try and see or think outside the box and be pragmatic about this issue. Because I get it, we all have valid points as far as this goes. There's no issue, there's no statement we made here that is out of place. But then let us understand that at times like this, it takes someone a brave heart to come out and say, okay, yes, this is a difficult situation, but someone has to do something difficult to get us something positive for everybody. My question to each and every one of us will be this: did this particular project break any rules? As far as I'm concerned, so far, I must say. Are they going to get this project in place? Is it going to be beneficial to our people? For me, the answer is yes. Are we going to have any problem trying to get there and in and out of that place? Yes. But the question is, let us think about the alternative for those who actually live in this, for those who are struggling to get themselves home. And again, I can't stop using myself as an example. My daughter lives with me in my little home here. After 5 years of graduation, she has a good job, what we consider to be a good job with the federal government of Canada, but she still cannot afford it. And I can tell you for sure, if I can get her into that place in Silver Valley, I will get her out of the house. Yes, I'm saying. So please, let us think about this and know that my daughter is lucky that she has a father where she can sport, but there are those who are not that lucky. they come 2 or 3 in one small application, they come by that they need. So please, let us think about it in this direction. And let us also ask the community, if this gets out there, to please go out and say, yes, please, because the need is there. We are here to help. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Seeing how there's no other comments, I will respectfully add my comments to this. Definitely, this is something that we're all torn with. Listen to the comments of colleagues around the table. Some of the things I hear, I agree with. Some of the things I hear, I don't agree with. When we look at, let's not conflate housing affordability with people who can't afford to even rent a place with no rent. There's nothing to rent. They're two separate issues. So I don't necessarily look at it in that sense. When I look at this, I look at, is 47 units too much? Not enough? Does it fit in that area? We know there's challenging areas, pieces in those areas. I'm not going to try to convince anybody one way or another. I think once this goes to, if it does go to public hearing, we need to be prepared to hear what the public has to say. And we know from other projects in that area, it's not going to be an easy path forward. But at that point, council needs to be prepared to make the right decision based on the feedback that we get, based on the comments that we have. It's a tight area. So I'm not going to sit here and try to convince anybody otherwise. Like I said, I agree with some, I don't agree with others. But that's the beauty of democracy. We don't all have to agree with each other. As long as we leave these chambers respectful with our colleagues and to each other, that's all that matters, right? So it's pretty much easy to read the room. Where I'm seeing is there is a desire to move it to public hearing, and I'm okay with that. Whatever happens after public hearing, you talk about courage, that's where you're going to need your courage. So I will leave it at that. And seeing as how there's no further comments or questions, I will put the vote. I'll call the vote. All those in favor of sending this to public hearing? And okay, motion is carried. Thank you very much. We move on to the next item, please. Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Your Worship. The next item is item 10.2, application 2021-579-RZ for property located at 23682 Dudney Trunk Road to rezone from M1 to RM1 and R2 to permit the future subdivision of approximately 2 single-family lots and the construction of approximately 16 townhouse units.
Thank you very much. Can I get a motion to move this item, please? Moved by Councillor Duick, seconded by Councillor Doze. Comments, questions? Oh, Councillor Youssef.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you to staff for the report. As I have not supported this application in the past, I will not be supporting it today. I see it as a net loss for our community. These are industrial lands that can be utilized for jobs that are now going to be this skinny little strip of townhouses that really is simply, as I said earlier, a net loss to our community. And worse yet, I fear that the property adjacent to them will go the same route. So I will be voting in opposition to this application. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Duick.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate what Councillor Youssef is saying. I mean, industrial land is hard to come by, but I have known this particular piece of property. Let me see. When did I meet my husband? 39 years ago. So his parents owned this property back then, long time ago, and it hasn't been industrial in that whole time. And the reason why is because it is a narrow, long piece of property, and you cannot get trucks in and out of there. So that's the reason I could look at it going from industrial to this, because it hasn't been utilized and there's a reason for that. If it hasn't been utilized in 40 years, it's because it's not viable piece of property. It is very long and narrow. So that's why I'm supporting it, not because I think we should take industrial out. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments or questions? Seeing none, I will call the question. All those in favor? Motion is carried. Carried 6-1. Did I get that right, Councillor Youssef? Okay. Or is it a down? All right, thank you very much. Moving on to the next item, please, Madam Clerk.
Next item is item 10.3, application 2017-548-DVP for property located at 12313 McNutt Road. It's a development variance permit to waive the road dedication requirement for a rural cul-de-sac and reduce the required cul-de-sac asphalt carriageway radius.
Thank you very much. Can I get a motion to move this item? Moved by Councillor Duick, seconded by Councillor Dothe. Comments, questions? Seeing none, I will call the question. All those in favor, motion is carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Moving on to the next item, please, Madam Clerk.
Item 10.4 is latecomer agreement LC 178-/22, which provides the city's assessment of cost allocation of the subdivision servicing works to the benefiting lands.
Thank you very much. Can I get a motion for this item, please? Moved by Councillor Dothe, seconded by Councillor Schiller. Comments, questions? Seeing none, I will call the question. All those in favor? Motion is carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Moving on to the next item, Madam Clerk, please.
We have another latecomer agreement, LC 182/24, and again provides the city's assessment of cost allocation of the extended storm sewer servicing to the benefiting lands.
Thank you very much. Motion to move, Councillor Dothe, seconded by anyone, Councillor Chan. Comments, questions? Seeing none, call the question. All those in favor? Motion is carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Moving on to the next item, please, Madam Clerk.
Item 10.6 is award of contract EN 23-107 for the Abernathy Way Road improvements between 224th Street to 230th Street. Requesting council approval to award the Abernathy Way Road improvement construction contract to Lafarge Canada and to increase the existing Applin and Martin Consultants Limited contract to provide construction support services.
Thank you very much. Motion to move this item, Councillor Duick, seconded by Councillor Tan. Comments, questions? Yay. Yay to that. Call the question then. All those in favor? Motion is carried unanimously. Now that's a yay. Yay. Excellent. Thank you very much. Madam Clerk, where are we now?
We are now at item 13, public question period. Participants in public question period are reminded that there should be no discussion of public hearing bylaws which have not yet reached conclusion. Each speaker will be provided, oh my goodness. Each speaker will have 2 minutes to speak to council. A second opportunity may be provided once all speakers in the queue have had an opportunity to speak. The total time allotted for public question period is 15 minutes. If you wish to inquire about additional opportunities to address council, please contact the corporate officers. For members of the public in attendance wanting to participate, please come forward to the microphone, state your name and city of residence for the record before beginning, and address your comments to the mayor. For members of the public participating electronically, please register as a speaker by raising your hand, turn on your camera, and clearly state your name and city of residence for the record before you begin and address your comments or questions to the mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody in chambers or online who wishes to come forward and ask a question? Nobody's online? Nobody's in chamber that wishes to speak? All right, then we will close the public question period. Thank you very much. Next item, Madam Clerk.
Next item is mayor and council verbal reports.
Yay, the fun part of the evening. Okay, speakers list. Councillor Youssef.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just real briefly, today the Ridge Meadows Rotary Club hosted Isabel McKenzie, seniors advocate, and she gave a stellar presentation. Came away with a lot of challenges that our seniors are facing, especially and specifically that 45% of seniors are living below the level of minimum wage income. That's a startling statistic for me. And it speaks to how our most vulnerable are actually our seniors that are on fixed income with the rise in costs of everything from food to rent. They can't afford to get a job. They won't be able to get a job because of the fact of their age, their abilities. So it speaks to the fact that we need to re-examine how we look after our elders and how we take care of them in their golden years. Secondly, Mr. Chair, this Thursday and Friday, February 1st and 2nd, there will be a blood donation clinic happening on 203rd and Dudney at the Alliance Church. I encourage everyone who is eligible to donate, and those that have not yet to go to blood.ca or call 1-888 to donate in order to see if they are eligible. And please do donate blood as often as you can, as much as you can. It is literally a lifeline to everyone undergoing cancer treatment, blood transfusions, accidents that occur, everything. We do need the blood. And as the Canadian Blood Services motto goes, we are Canada's lifeline. Thank you, Mr. Chair. That's my report.
Thank you very much. Moving to Councillor Carreras.
Thank you. Well, last Saturday, I actually attended Emerald Pig's production of Reservation for Six, which was awesome because I followed Emerald Pig for a long time, and I've seen, I love their free bard they do in the park. So I really love supporting art where they give back to the community. But what was super cool is this was actually the first time I was able to go to Albion Community Center and see it set up as a theater. I'd always, knew that we had sort of the lighting and everything, but this is the first time I actually attended for a theater event. And it was pretty cool. So it was really awesome to kind of see the setup and how it was envisioned for a theater. And also it's like local theater. I think they're in Pitt Meadows next week. Please go check it out. It was a good show. I attended sort of the third and really final one of the BC government webinars on the new housing legislation. This was very timely on Bill 44, which we talked about earlier today. And it was fascinating. I know I've shared it with my colleagues. They're long. They're an hour and a half to 2 hours, but there's a lot of questions, and the public can view them if they want. They're online. But I do encourage you to check them out. Like, I learned a lot, and there's an hour and a half of just questions from people around the province on what this legislation means for municipalities and regional districts. So that was really cool. And then just one Arts Council last night, really great things coming up. There's a show, Arts Said the Whale, a great local to the Lower Mainland, really cool kind of indie band. And I do think there are some tickets left, and it's on February the 10th. So I encourage you to go check out Said the Whale. I have my tickets already, and I'm looking forward to it. And then one last thing, and then I'm passing it on, is last night, the mayor and I attended the BC Summer Games volunteer appreciation kickoff. And so that's where you have all your directorates and all their chairs. There's about 100 people in the room. We all had our blue jackets on, and we got to meet all the teams that were a part of the BC Summer Games. And oh my gosh, I tell you, it's so exciting. I'm looking forward to it. It's 5 months away now. So it's fascinating, and I just encourage you in the community to keep your eyes open. There'll be another event, I believe, coming up in March, which is the big kickoff, and then the torch lighting ceremony traditionally happens in April. So that's it for me. It's a great week. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And moving to Councillor Duick. Schiller.
Thank you, Mayor.
You were pointing them.
What have I been up to? Okay, I did want to just share that I attended a session recently. It was put on by Regenerate BC. It was hosted locally by Maple Ridge Climate Hub, and it was the first session in a series that just focuses on climate change and positive solutions. We had a great turnout. We filled the Fraser room in the library. Lots of members of the public. Climate Hub board members. I want to thank Mayor Remy and Corleen Carreras Councillor Carreras for attending as well. And so that was the first one, and we've got 5 more dates coming up. And you can show up to any of them. And as always, it is just really wonderful to be in a room full of people who are passionate about taking action on climate change and get to meet folks and hear their ideas. It was a really positive session, and I'm looking forward to the next one. And the Environmental Advisory Committee recently had our first meeting of the year. So we welcomed our new members and just looked at plans for the upcoming year. And that was very good as well. That's all.
Thank you very much. No, okay. Blame him for that one. Any further comments or? No, just a couple of points to update. We have a couple of surveys that are out in the public right now. One is for the Hammond recreational facility. There's an online survey. There's three focus, actually there's 4 focus groups. One is specifically only for the Hammond residents, and the other 3 are just for general residents. Basically what we're looking to hear is, what would you like to see there? What, did you want to see a pool? Did you want to see a ice rink? What would you like to see there? So that's currently ongoing for the next couple of weeks. I think we're looking at January 31st, February 11th, February 15th. And if you go online to the City of Maple Ridge's website, you will find that information. I want to thank the city for a couple of things. One, the recent snow that we had. Excellent job by operations getting out with our 15 snow plows and one, how do you say it? Kubota, which I'm told was a riot. Apparently they actually helped a few motorists get unstuck. So it's great to have that addition to the fleet. And we also had a sidewalk snowblower as well. So excellent job. It lasted a couple of days, but it was great to see the quick response to that. Also want to thank the city operations team for going out this week and fixing potholes. It has to be said. I mean, now is the time. And there's, again, if you go to the website, our website, you will see if you see a spot hole, if you spot a pothole, there's a number that you can call, and we'll have crews get out there as quickly as possible. I mean, we don't normally talk about this, but this is the day-to-day operations of running a city. This is where a lot of the funds go to, is making sure that roads are clear, that we have good roads, and we have some work to do for sure. But I want to thank operations and the city for a bang-up job on getting all those things done. Finally, we got the financial plan coming pretty soon. We'll be talking about what our numbers are going to look like for the new year in the budget, along with some more strategy sessions as we continue to move this year. There's a lot of things on the go. It's going to be fast and furious, and I just want to thank everybody in advance for the good work. Where I live, I'm seeing the fire department and the fire trucks out and about, and my little puppy Piper, ears perk up when she hears your truck. She's like, I want to get out there. Should get her a little hat. Finally, the only other thing I wanted to say is, again, today is another great example of democracy at work. We don't all agree, and that's okay. There's no hard feelings. This is what it's all about. And I appreciate each and every one of you, what you bring to the table, the comments that you make, your thoughtfulness, your words. This is why we will continue to take great strides to be able to move forward on building a better city. So I want to thank you again for everything that you do. And that is the end of me for that. Do we have any further business?
We do not, Your Worship.
All right, seeing as how we have no further business, I will adjourn the meeting. Thank you very much, everybody. Have a wonderful day. See you all on Thursday.